All projects undergo some form of change. As we initially estimate a project, we're looking at a very high-level scope, deriving a budget and a schedule from that high-level scope. Things change. That's just the nature of projects. Failure to control that change, or failure to control those change requests, is what leads to problem in projects. And the whole intent here is clarity of communication and clarity of expectations with the sponsor, stakeholders, and the project team on what the project's going to do. That's the purpose of Module 7. I've sent each of the teams a scenario, a risk or an issue or something affecting their project that demands a response. In this particular instance, my project, Stockton Schools Music Fundraiser, has a change request to move the date. The initial date was scheduled for June 12th, but which was a date we selected as there were no sports teams, concerts, or other events locally that could create a conflict for the event. So if you note here, I've got the date, I've got a PCR number of the project, I've identified a date change which is also going to lead to a budget change. And frequently when we look at a change request, it could be a change in scope affecting budget and schedule. It could just be a date change which may have an impact on budget and may have an impact on scope. Or it could just be a budget change. In other words, we underestimated the project and we need to inject more funds. The intent of the change request is to review the request with the sponsor, who's ever writing the check for this project, to get their agreement. Every change doesn't necessarily need a project change. Some changes are benign, no impact on budget, no impact on schedule, no impact on scope, or minimal impact on scope. I'm not sure we need to have a change request for everything. That's a decision that you get to make as a PM. Any material change affecting the project must have a change request. Now, because this is a format for communication with our stakeholders, we have to put the rationale for the change. What is the reason for the change? Well, in my particular example, two things have caused us to re-examine the schedule. The first is Chris Isaac, a relatively well-known musician in the Bay Area and a graduate of the Stockton Schools Music Department, has graciously offered to perform for free. Though he's booked on the original date night, but he is available a week later on June 20th. The high school wind ensemble is again playing at the California State Band Competition, and as many band parents will attend, driving back to Stockton from San Diego may reduce the number of volunteers available for decorating and hosting the event. And we expect our wind ensemble to again take honors at the competition, so this gives us the ability to recognize our band members and program during the event. As a side note, these are really positive risks here. We have something positive that we want to exploit to improve the output of the objectives of the project, which was raising money for the Stockton Music Schools. Having a named musician play is a positive opportunity for the project. So we next go into describing the scope of the change. We propose to move the date, which means we'll have to modify all advertising and event marketing, which we expect to cost $1,350. We'll also need to find an alternative venue, and the Empire Theater downtown is available that night. The owner is given the project a reduced cost and also requires additional security personnel to manage parking and outside security. The Empire Theater is downtown in Stockton. So here now I've got a table that lists the very specific changes I'm going to make. We're going to move the event date. There's no hour or cost impact. We're going to reprint market and advertising materials. There will be some time. We've got internal labor to spend modifying and mocking up our materials. There's a cost there. We're going to move the venue, and we're going to add security. Our total impact is 36 hours, $2,710. So we would now want to present this to the sponsor of the project or the stakeholders to get their approval. Are you good for moving the date? Are you good for adding hours? Are you good for increasing the cost? Change impact, a 1-week deferral, total hours, project pricing, and here's where we sign and say we approve, the client signs and say they approve. Is this the form you need to use? No, you can use whatever form is appropriate. What I want to see, though, is that there is a background, there is a description, a rationale, and a total understanding of the impact on the project. And then I want to see that change reflected in your schedule and your budget. Do we go back and update the charter? Well, you can, but typically you don't need to. The charter becomes a point-in-time view of the project that, as the project progresses, becomes less and less relevant. Rather, the history of the project becomes the initial charter, the initial scope statement, and each of these PCRs, or project change requests, that denote the history of the project. I hope this has been helpful, and I'll see you all in Module 8.